Hey, this is Patty Larkin, celebrating 20 years of Retrospectives with John Broughton on 3SER KC Radio. Congratulations, John. Cheers.
All right.
Great.
Well, let's
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you coping with lockdown?
Pretty well, actually. We're sort of in the woods in the country, and we have access to the ocean. So I actually thought about Australia a lot today. It was a big, long, wide beach. Thought about you guys.
Yeah.
How about you? Good?
No, we're doing fine over here. It's just a matter of just keeping busy and dealing each card as it comes to
Yeah.
you, I guess. That's all you can do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Anyway.
how do you want to do this anyway? Yeah.
Well, we're just going to chat about this new record, which I'm loving.
Thank you. Great.
I guess the current situation, though, makes it virtually impossible for you to get out there and promote the album in the way that you'd like to. Are you looking at alternate ways to get the album out there, or are you just going to wait till it's all over and relaunch, or what's the plan?
Well, we've been promoting to U.S. radio and had some really good response with non-commercial, and Americana just started to chart. And, it's just a very strange time. People are obviously distracted, and survival is sort of key and community is key. So I have one show that is going to stream live May 8th, and then I'm getting sort of gear together in my studio so I can do some other types of streaming and looking at that and just listen to a song by Janice Ian, and I'm going to, record some tracks for her on guitar and maybe some vocals. And so she's kind of helping to organize people as well. And I think that it's slowly coming together in a way. I have a family, and my main concern was just that we were all healthy and safe at this point.
Of course, yeah. I noticed the last series of shows you were doing was a series called On a Winter's Night with a bunch of other wonderful songwriters. That sounded like a lot of fun.
It's been really great. It was a total blast. And it's been Cheryl Wheeler, Christine Lavin, John Gorka, Cliff Eberhardt, and myself. And those, we did a bunch in November and 4 in March, and then the 12th on was all canceled. But it's all been rebooked for this next 2021. And then we'd already planned in February to do some shows with John and Cliff and myself and Lucy Kaplansky. So it's kind of morphing and staying the same as well. But it is really a phenomenal show. It's very funny, which you wouldn't think. And it's like a ton of songs. But we feed off of each other, and we tell stories on stage and off, and it's been a great 25th reunion tour.
Wonderful. Well, let's talk about this new project. I believe it's quite a while in the making.
Yeah, I was going back, I believe 2016 I first started working on it, and started recording 2017 and was wrapping it up in 2018, and my co-producer died. He had cancer, which came back, roaring back, and it was unexpected on my part. But so it took me another year to kind of mix it and get together, and then we waited unfortunately, till March 3rd to release it, thinking, spring is a great time to do it. I was going to do it in the fall, but I waited. But a lot of it came about just by meeting these poets. I've been teaching a workshop in lyric writing at a place called the Fine Arts Work Center near where I live. And so I met people like Marie Howe and Nick Flynn and Natalie Diaz, Kelly Groom, Robert Pinsky. And the place is a writing and arts fellowship program that has workshops in the summer. And in the summer I teach during Poetry Week. And my last album, I had done a poem by Kay Ryan, set it to music, and I collaborated with Marie Howe on a performance, and we did a piece on Mary Magdalene that she had written, and of course I did my song, Mary Magdalene. But it really, it really inspired me to look at the poetry and start setting more poems to song. And it just took a little bit longer than I thought it would. I have, right now I'm looking at, in my studio, I'm looking at pretty much an album's worth of original material that also can come out at some point, but I just have to, get it recorded and organized. I just thought this was an intriguing project to be working on. And in a way, it's, I think it's going to just be a long-term change in terms of certain kinds of focus and performance. I look forward to doing more shows with the poets.
It must have been an enormous songwriting challenge for you. What were some of the hurdles that you encountered in the creative process of putting these poems to music?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, I just would open up. I knew some of the artists I wanted to work with, and I was a fan of people like May Sarton and Nick Flynn and Billy Collins, and I just kept paging through their books, and with my guitar in my lap, I kept singing to things, and if something spoke to me, I would keep going, but if it didn't, I would turn the page. So in a way, it was very spontaneous, and a couple of them, like the William Carlos Williams and Paradiso, which is a Dante piece of, a Dante work that Robert Pinsky translated. I just took a mic and I just started singing to a loop I already had recorded maybe a couple of years earlier with guitar. And so some of it was super spontaneous, and others I really worked at, like Kelly Groom. I reorganized some of the verse so that I could get it more into song form. But my basic tenet was to take what I thought was the hook of the poem and turn that into a chorus. And luckily, the poets agreed to that. That took about almost a year to get permission, not from the poets who are living, but the poets who are archived and have publishers and family that, they're protecting the name. And yeah. I respect that. But I thought it would be, the folk scene is like, yeah, that'd be great. Let's collaborate. That'd be great. And I think I chose poets who there's like the 5 Nobel laureates on the CD, and people who Natalie Diaz just won the MacArthur Fellowship. So there's some very heavy hitters, and it's a different scene. And some of them, like Nick Flynn and Marie Howe and Kelly Groom, they're ready to let's just go out and do a bunch of shows. That would be really great to perform together. And maybe some of the other artists it's just a little different for them to think outside that box. But for me, it makes a lot of sense. It's like poetry jams, and it was really, really exciting and fun. And even the recording part was a lot of fun. So I would have to say, not sure I would do it again because it's a complicated thing, but I would definitely do it, but not in a CD form. I would definitely, I look forward to doing more poems, but probably won't do a project like this again. It's just kind of unique that way. Very exciting in a way, too.
You mentioned to me in email that it is actually Poetry Month over there at the moment. What does that normally entail in a non-lockdown world?
Yeah, right. Well, it is Poetry Month that was basically invented in 1996 by the American Academy of Poets, and it's celebrating, the beauty that poetry brings to our lives. And it's to me, I'm always aware of it, and people like Marie Howe have done things like I think it was Grand Central Station or Penn Station. She set up all these poets, and you could come in, off the train or with an idea for a poet or someone that you wanted to write a poem for, and they had typewriters and laptops, and they typed it out right there in the middle of the train station. And so I've been intrigued by it for a long time, and we're doing free downloads on my website for Poetry Month, but I think it also just kind of brings to light, another way to access meditation and peace and thinking outside of yourself at a time when that's a sustainable way to work and live, and a very much needed, addition to our lives right now. So
Yeah.
it's to me, it's the basis of songwriting, and it's part of our history, part of our DNA, really, storytelling and poetry. So it really speaks to me to have it be part of my daily practice, and in terms of reading other people's work, but also in terms of finding some kind of meaning and peace at a time when it's very crazy and very challenging to live day to day.
Now, of course, this album will hold a special place for you. As you mentioned before, you lost your producer, Mike Dineen, wonderful producer. Sadly passed away before its completion, but I'm guessing not before he left an indelible mark on this album, just the same.
No, we started working together in 2003 with Red Equals Luck, and he mixed several of my records, and then we co-produced the last couple. And he would never agree to play. He's an amazing musician, and he's like, no, I want you. I'm going to show you how to play the part on the grand piano. I'm like, I don't play piano or Hammond B3, but okay, let's go. But this time, he obviously knew he was dying and didn't care to share it, but he set up his vintage keyboards and put some beautiful tracks on this album, and I think it's obviously super meaningful to me, and I also think it added so much depth, and he has this real awareness of the history of popular music, and worked with Amy Mann and some award-winning musicians, and huge Beatles fan, and also just really insightful person who had a great sense of humor. So to hear his parts on it, to me, resonates with depth and beauty. It really means a lot that he played on it and really kind of pre-mixed a lot of the tracks that we ended up, using a lot of the mixes that he had been working on as we were in progress.
So what about with the musical accompaniment? I mean, you're working with poetry here, so the words are so important. Did you really have a set idea to how you wanted to approach it musically, not wanting to get in the way of the words?
Exactly. I think, for Mike, because he's a pop guy, he really wanted to put drums and bass on a lot of it, and I really I didn't hear that. To me, I wanted the words to be the star, and so when I went back to mix it with Pat DeCenza, who was the engineer on the tracks, I just kept taking things off, because I know with Mike, he probably would have used a lot of what we did and made it make sense. But for me, I just kept saying, let's just pare it down. Sort of the folk singer in me came to the forefront, and I also didn't want to get it too busy. It was really about the words, and really about the song and melody and the vocal. So luckily I had, people like Jonathan Brook and Mary Amsterberg, who's fantastic, and this trio of sisters called the Parkinson Sisters, and some musicians who are fabulous, that I was able to say, okay, let's keep this part of it, but let's take the rest of this experimental stuff off. And so when I listened to it, I was originally, I was disappointed, because I really thought Mike could have, he would have used more of what we tracked. But on the other hand, I think that it resonates in terms of poems coming alive as songs. And so for that reason, I think it really works, and I'm very proud of it.
You mentioned earlier that you did consult with some of the poets on any alterations that you wanted to make. Did you also consult with them in terms of how they would perceive the songs being delivered vocally? In what manner and what mood? Only Marie, really. I mean, I what I did was
to get their permission, the people that I knew, I sent them the rough mixes, and so it was just mainly vocal and guitar. And you know, Marie, it's really interesting. Her poem is Magdalene, Madeline on Romance. Magdalene, Mary Magdalene. She did her latest book of poems is all with Mary Magdalene as a theme. And to me, when I was looking at poetry, I thought I really like this poem, and I really hear it as sort of not a country, but a woman who's kind of a toughie. And so we have had an email exchange around that the poem brings her a sense of sadness. And I said, to me, the poem brings me a sense of strength, that this is a survivor's poem, and that she comes back and sits down in the white chair after going through this tumult and problem with her significant other, who's drinking too much, but I think that the biggest one for me that was the most challenging was to present to Natalie Diaz was Jimmy Eagle, because it is a super charged story about a young kid who's, I think, 16 or something, true story, in the 70s, and he had allegedly stolen some boots, cowboy boots, and these unidentified FBI agents came on the reservation, and it was the beginning of a major, major battle, and so it's a political song, really, and she is so powerful and so moving in her poetry, and so political that when I sent it to her, I was just like, I really want to do this poem justice. As a white girl, Irish American, I hope I have credibility in the way I'm singing it. And she really liked it. So to me, that was big. And Billy Collins was big too. But, I think some people like Marie and Nick Flynn and Robert Pinsky has been a friend through these last few years, and he really, really wrote a very beautiful email back, just loved what I did with his translation. And so, to me, to not be able to speak to someone like Mae Sarton or Stanley Kunitz, it's important for me to connect with the people that I can. And the response was very, very positive.
So overall, the feedback from the poets has been pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to do something together. Anyone, the people who are living poets, and do an entire show, which we're hoping to do this spring, but that's not going to happen, obviously. So I think that will happen, and I also think that it will. I'm looking at this as, within my own touring, to just be, a moment of 3 or 4 poem songs that I present during my own performance, but yet I also see it as something else that could be outside the box that we could do, as an ongoing project to promote poetry in the schools, to promote the poets themselves, who are magnificent, and being able to teach lyric writing during a poetry week. Even the people who are studying, come from all over the country and all over the world, really, to go to this place in Provincetown. And they're award-winning and pretty amazing poets.
Now, the oldest poem on there is also the opening track on the album, which goes back to 1913, the full song by William Carlos Williams.
Yes.
I understand he was not only a poet, but a GP, a doctor of general practice.
I know. He apparently delivered 2,000 babies in his work and his other job. I think he's a fascinating person. His dad was English, his mom Puerto Rican, of mixed Puerto Rican heritage, and Spanish and maybe Italian. I can't remember. But he grew up in America at a time when he had a regular job, but also he had this other job, which was as a poet, and he did both full time. And he eventually became recognized for the brilliant work that he had done. And it took him, I think there was sometimes people are born ahead of their times, and I think he's one of those people who later, the beat poets really found him as the father of modern poetry, because he was really succinct and, sort of pre-beat in a way of his lines. He wasn't like studied and academic, which was the kind of poetry that was popular in the 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, and he just stuck to his guns and eventually, got the recognition he deserved. Some of it was posthumous, but anyway, that was the last thing I did for the record, and I was thinking at the time I really wanted something that was going to be sort of have a social commentary to it, and I think that that's his genius in this song that really is, about a bird in the cage, but yet it's about society, and it also resonates with what's going on in American society, and in terms of border walls and caging people, caging ideas, and what is truth. And we're having that discussion, and hopefully it will all, come to light that, you really can't contain the truth. You can't contain what is real for people. And so I really was very pleased to find it, and then inspired to write sort of a tag to it in Spanish and put that on the back.
I love the closing piece on the album as well, the Billy Collins poem, Introduction to Poetry. Tell us a bit about that one and about Billy.
Well, Billy Collins is somebody that Peter Mulvey is a good folk singer friend of mine. We're both from the same town in Wisconsin, and we were driving up the West Coast, and he got in with a huge bag of oats that he was eating, and he also had a CD of Billy Collins reading live in New York, and we kind of laughed and roared and kind of cried all the way up the coast. I mean, and then he sent me a couple of his books, and that's just who Peter is. And so I've been a fan of his for maybe 10, 15 years now, and I really wanted to include something of his, on the album, and I had a couple different options, one of which I thought was kind of funny. But there's something about Introduction to Poetry. I studied English in college, and I was a student teacher, as they call it here, where you go and I went to a high school, and I taught English for a semester, and I was just pretty terrible at it. And I started playing more and more music during that time. So that's kind of where I went with my own life. But it really resonated with me, the idea that of trying to teach poetry, and the students they're just tearing it apart for meaning, and really we just want them to go water skiing, across the surface of the poem, and just enjoy the sound of the words, or next time enjoy some other part of it, and that's what it does for me. It's I'm a words person. I'm into sound, and if it falls well, off the tongue or off the page for me, I can enjoy it. And this one, it's the most produced song on the record, and my friend Ben Whitman I sent everything to him to help me edit it after Mike Dineen passed away, and he sent it back and said, I just couldn't help but play drums on it. So it's almost Beatlesque, the way it's produced. And Mike threw me a 12-string guitar. He said, no, this is how you should pick it. This is the part you need to play to sound like the Beatles. So it's a fun track. I like ending the record with it.
Now, the wonderful Jonatha Brook lends her vocals to the record, as she has done on a few of your albums now. How did you first connect with Jonatha?
Well, she was in a duo called The Story, with Jennifer Kimball here in Boston, and then it became a band that then got signed and had some real success actually in the States and abroad. And but she and Jennifer were on from Angels Running, which is 1993. They've been part of my recording sound, and we've done a lot of touring together. And Jonathan and I have stayed in touch. She's doing great creative work, and she's the kind of person that I can send her a few tracks and she'll just, whatever she adds, it's brilliant. And so I sent her two, and she got back to me with both those tracks, and they're just, she adds a personality and a dissonance to it, and also just a musical sensibility about her work that resonates with me. And so I'm a big fan of hers, and we've done some duo shows together and I hope to do more. She's a lot of fun to work with.
Now, I'm guessing not every piece of poetry would lend itself to a musical adaptation. So were there some poems there that you really would have liked to have included but just couldn't find a way to make them work?
Well, yeah, a lot. I mean, I was just looking at them today. I have books, books and books. But I think, I think I'm probably not finished doing this. I think that it's a fabulous, not a distraction, but a passion, really. Because I think that there's so much music in poetry, and we'll just see where it leads. These were the ones that I like the most.
Mm. So A Bird in the Cage Volume 2 is not totally out of the question.
I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know. Mm. It might be legally, but no. I mean, in terms of doing more that I do in my live shows, no, not at all. I'll probably continue to do it.
So I think having worked through this project will leave a lasting influence on the way you tackle your own songwriting in future?
I think it already has. I mean, I think, excuse me, I think it has made me value simplicity in a way. And, the thing I admire most about these poets is that they're fearless, and they tackle all different kinds of subjects in different ways that I wouldn't attempt in my own lyric writing. And I think there's also, it's kind of dovetailing with my love of older music, and maybe just getting simpler with it. And that's what my writing seems to be doing in a way. But I think overall the biggest thrill has been to follow someone's train of thought down that thread and try to come back up, on the other side with it. And so there's like in Jimmy Eagle's Hot Cowboy Boots, there's a measure that is an odd time because I couldn't get all the words in. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna squish it all in where it doesn't make sense. I'm just gonna run it out, or even the melody of Paradiso or the Snowlight. There's some places where it varies, and it was a challenge, but it was such a joy to go on that journey with someone else who wasn't me. Because I think that as a songwriter, you get into a groove and you get into what you do, and you also go, okay, verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, out. And with this, it's your imagination is left free to roam and move about the cabin. You can take it anywhere you really want to. And so I'm indebted to these people for, the work that they did and for giving me permission to do it. It's just been a lot of fun and not over, actually.
Hey, Patty, thanks so much for your time. Congratulations on taking on such a big challenge and doing it so successfully. It's a great piece of work. We'll look out for that streaming show on May the 8th, was it?
Yeah, May 8th. Yeah.
Yeah, terrific. This will probably be going to air around that time too.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking with me about it. It's a joy to talk about.
And we hope when the world is back to something resembling normal, we might see you back here in Australia. It's been quite a while now.
I know. I'd love to, and so would my daughters. It's something to come out there.
Yeah, it was
Thank you so much.
2002 you were last year. I was looking at my old ticket stub this morning. I've still got it.
Oh, God. Yeah, I think I was back out there, I think in 2010. But, it's too long to be away. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Congratulations again, Patty, and thanks so much for your time, and we'll catch you real soon, hopefully.
Okay.
All the best.
Be safe.
You too. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.